One weekend, it was near the end of the semester, I was teaching at North County. Like I mentioned, I was choreographing 6 dance pieces and heading the dance company too. I was also getting ready for a performance with Benita Bike's Dance Art Company in Los Angeles. The plan was this weekend that my sister, Rayanne, was going to drive with me south, and I would drop her off at my dad's for the weekend while I went further south to have tech and dress rehearsals on Friday night when I got there, then 2 performances on Saturday with Benita. Then we would drive back north Sunday morning so I could get back to work at the high school on Monday. Rayanne was to drive from Prunedale to Paso Robles, and I would finish the drive. It started out okay, and we were just past Bradley, and I was thinking, okay, soon I'll be able to get behind the wheel and drive. Rayanne asked me to switch the cassette tape over so we could listen to the other side. And I think it was Wham! Wake Me Up Before You Go Go. I said, you don't have to switch the cassette over anymore, Rayanne. You just have to push this button, and it switches automatically. Look. I reach for the button, and Rayanne slightly turns her head to watch me as I switch the cassette to the other side. When we both looked back to the road, it had veered, and we were heading off of it. Rayanne lets out a scream, ah! And turns the wheel to get back on the road, but she overcorrects, and we start heading towards the center divider, which is a strip of grass about 50 feet wide. So I panic, and I reach for the steering wheel with both hands to try and correct the other way, and I overcorrect. This causes the Bronco to roll right over left. I don't know how many times. I was leaning over the center console and I couldn't see out the window, so I didn't see what was happening. It all just went in slow motion. I was like, oh my God, I think we're rolling. The Bronco settled upright, and I noticed that I couldn't sit back up because the roof of the car was bashed in down onto my shoulder. Rayanne was freaking out. I had to help her calm down. She was saying, oh my God, oh my God. She was crying, and I was telling her, it's okay, it's okay. It seemed as if the dust hadn't settled yet, and all of a sudden there was a highway patrol's face that popped up in Rayanne's window. I'm still leaning over the center console, not being able to move. I immediately tell him, my sister has multiple sclerosis, but she has a driver's license. I felt the need to tell him that because I didn't want him to think that Rayanne was drunk or doing drugs. She didn't move like a normal person and had been accused of being drunk in the past because she can't walk very well because she has MS. We both had to climb out the back of the car because it was the only door that would open. The car, which is a square body type, was now oval, every corner dented in, especially the one above my head. To this day, I think about this accident and the juxtaposition of how maybe the accident wouldn't have occurred had I not reached over to correct the wheel. But if I didn't reach over to correct the wheel, I would have still been sitting upright, and if the accident occurred anyway, I would have died by the roof of the Bronco crushing my head. I thank God that my sister didn't have to sit there looking at the dead body of her sister with a roof crushed into her head, and living the rest of her life feeling that she caused my death. I would have much rather think that I'm a control freak and that I felt the need to take the wheel to correct something, but then unfortunately made the situation worse. But at least I'm alive. We got out of the car and had to wait for the CHP to do some paperwork and investigation of the accident. I told the CHP right after we got out of the car, I need to get to Los Angeles tonight. He replied, I don't think that you're going to make it. He obviously did not know me. We got a ride back to King City with him. We stopped in Bradley to call my mom and stepdad to come pick us up in King City. I also called Jim to let him know that I was just in a car accident, and his first question to me was, were you in your car? No, Jim, I wasn't in my car, but I could have died. Thanks for caring. We got to King City and were waiting for my parents to arrive to take us home. And the officer jokingly makes a comment about how he didn't find any weed at the scene of the accident. I was totally befuddled by this. Of course you didn't find any weed. Neither of us had any weed. I'm sure it would have made a lot of sense if you did find weed. But no, this accident was just as simple as that. It was an accident. I didn't smoke weed. Not then. I smoked such a little bit growing up, but I remember making an executive decision in college that I wasn't going to smoke it because I was concerned it would affect my short-term memory and I would start missing cues and forgetting the choreography. I certainly didn't buy it, but for some reason everyone would give it to me because they thought I was a pot smoker. But I started refusing it. I was a dancer. Dancing and performing is all I cared about. After my parents got us back to their house, I called and booked the bus ticket to LA. That same night, I boarded a bus. It was a 12-hour bus ride from Salinas to LA. I arrived in LA at 7 a.m. the next morning. My dad picked me up in LA. My best friend Heather got me from my dad's house in Canyon Country and drove me to the concert venue where we had tech and dress rehearsals, and then I performed in the 2 scheduled concerts for a total of 17 audience members, with large bruises on my back and shoulder where the roof of the Bronco had pinned me down in my seat. I don't remember how I made it back to Prunedale, but I did, and I went back to teach my classes at North County on Monday morning and ended up having to leave school early that day. I was so exhausted. I went to my in-laws' house where I was staying, and I took a nap and woke up throwing up. I was finally sick. After a day or two, I was back into the swing of things and had to finish up choreographing and teaching the 6 dances to my dance company 2 dancers, as well as teaching the 2 dance classes a day to a very large, over 30 students' dance classes. On top of that, I had to figure out if I was going to stay beyond that semester to continue the job. They were wanting to know because if I wasn't, they needed to find another teacher for the next semester. I was perplexed about this because I truly didn't know what I wanted to do. I mean, I didn't even know if I married the right guy. It was so weird. After high school, I went to college in Southern California, and he went to college in Northern California. And then we got married, and he gets a job in Southern California, and I get a job in Northern California. He moves to Southern California where I wanted to be, but I get a job in Northern California and travel up and down the coast several times. We still had never lived together in the same house in our entire relationship. Was this job worth me driving up and down the coast for another semester? I had to really figure that out. So I spent the rest of the semester trying to figure it out. So as I took these very normal, never having taken a class in their lives, young people, and turned them into pretty beautiful little dancers and performers, the concert went off without a hitch, kind of, and the dance pieces I thought were cutting edge and full of excitement. I was super surprised to not see the audience on their feet with applause. I mean, what these dancers accomplished was nothing short of amazing, especially given the circumstances. I mean, there wasn't a proper dance studio to take classes in. The floor was not a proper dance floor. It was carpet on concrete. The rehearsal times and spaces were almost impossible to get. I was fighting for those spaces with other sports teams. I started to think that the dance department wasn't getting the attention it used to get back when I was first starting it. And after my own experiences of being a student at that high school and then coming back as a teacher, I felt either things were different back in high school and that they had changed for the worse, or maybe they were always like this and I just didn't notice them back then. Maybe I lived in a bubble. But it wasn't the students as much as the faculty that made me somehow uncomfortable. Faculty that were faculty when I was a student, as well as faculty that were students when I was a student. There were a few people I went to high school with that went to college and came back and were now faculty. I felt like I never really fit in. I felt like every time I went into the staff lounge, I was stared at and talked about when I left. I wasn't close to anybody, almost like, exactly like when I was a student there. The biggest difference this time around was that the other faculty didn't know that I was aware of some of what they had done. Things even back when I was there as a student. There were teachers, both male and female, having sex with students, as well as married teachers having affairs with other married teachers. There was already no doubt in my mind I wanted nothing to do with this action. There was no way in heaven or hell that I was going to participate in any kind of behavior with any fellow teacher, and certainly not with any student, no matter how close in age we were. So my biggest struggle wasn't making the decision on not staying after that semester. It was telling everybody that I wasn't going to stay. Telling students that I wasn't going to stay. I needed to figure out if I was going to stay married to the guy that I married, and the only way that I could do that is to finally live in the same house with him. So after that semester, Jim and I finally moved in together in a small 900 square foot house in the city of Orange. In order to make this choice, I had to mostly be unemployed for reasons I'm not sure why, as I started taking my Pilates certification through the Physical Mind Institute, being trained by none other than Rael Izakowicz, whom at the time was the chair of the Physical Mind Institute.